Welcome back to 5 Minute Fantasy Football, presented to you by the Sports Gambling Podcast Network and our friends over at Underdog. Join millions and download Underdog. Play Underdog this weekend. I'm using the higher on the Jameis Winston interceptions every single week, along with my Derrick Henry touchdowns. Derrick Henry's off this week, but let's talk about my favorite starts, sits, and streams for Week 14. Let's look at the top teams that are giving up the most points per position to help you with your start-sit questions. If you got a quarterback, start them against the Jaguars, the Bucks, the Bengals, the Ravens, and the Cowboys. It's top 5 teams giving up the most points. Panthers, Jaguars, Bills, Colts, 49ers for your running backs. Wide receivers, Vikings, Ravens, Jaguars, Lions, and Falcons. Tight ends, Panthers, Bengals, Chiefs, Raiders, Colts. See a lot of these teams are repeating, the Colts and the Panthers and the Jaguars. The kickers, Raiders, Falcons, Panthers, Dolphins, Ravens. Ravens are also on here quite a bit. Defensive special teams, Will Levis, Titans, Jameis Winston, Browns, Drew Lock, Giants, Aiden O'Connell, Raiders, and Geno Smith has made the cut. Let's talk about the quarterback position. Over the last 4 weeks, the Bengals have given up the most points to the position, but the New York Jets, ever since they got rid of Robert Saleh, have been gushing fantasy points to the quarterback position. Second overall over the last 4 weeks. This team is just, they're a mess, and Tua gets them this week. And Tua is my start of the week. I think you get a lot of points out of Tua. Jonnu Smith is a stud. I know Jonnu Smith's kind of wiped out Jaden Waddle's production, but you got Devon Achane, who can take it to the house. You have Tyreek Hill, who hasn't even really been himself. Tua has been a very good quarterback 2 since he's returned, and I think he has a great week against the Jets. Geno Smith, I'm a little nervous about. It's a tougher matchup than it looks. The Cardinals have been pretty tight. They've only allowed 12 fantasy points per game for quarterbacks over the last 4 weeks. They're more of a run funnel defense, and I would just look for better options if you have them. Will Levis, stream of the week. He's kind of a must start every week now. I know he's the kind of the Jameis Winston, Ryan Fitzpatrick type, YOLO gunslinger type of quarterback, but he gets a fantastic matchup. Anybody against the Jags, you want to start him. He rushes the ball. He passes it deep. Nick Westbrook-Ikine scores a touchdown every single week. He's pretty much in line for 2 touchdowns, 250 yards, an interception, and 20 or 30 yards on the ground every single week. You look at the running back position. The 49ers, Giants, and Colts have all allowed over 30 fantasy points per game over the last 4 weeks. That's why I have Alvin Kamara as my top choice. But the 49ers and Colts, they've historically been better against the running back. Not recently. A lot of injuries and things going on with those teams. Nick Bosa's out this week. The Jaguars aren't far behind. They're almost allowing 30 points per week, and they're basically the easiest matchup for the entire year. On the opposite side of things, the Lions, Vikings, Raiders are teams that you want to avoid. Less than 15 points over points per game for running backs over the past 4 weeks. Start of the week, Alvin Kamara. I think there's not much to say. He's my RB1 overall. Gus Edwards, he's a very inefficient running back. Every year he comes in and he is able to back up J.K. Dobbins. It's just crazy to see both those guys, how their careers have been. But I think Kamani Vidal gets some play and starts to take over this backfield. Edwards doesn't look good, and he does not look even as good as Dobbins did, who was inefficient as well. I like Vidal, and I'm worried about Edwards this week against tough Kansas City defense. Tony Pollard, last week he sucked. He's been pretty inconsistent in the last couple weeks over the second half of the season after a good first half, but I think you see him bounce back again. It's the Jaguars. You start players in fantasy football against the Jaguars, and real football is starting against the Jaguars. Wide receivers, over the last 4 weeks, the Saints, Bengals, Falcons, Chiefs, Raiders, and Chargers have all allowed the most fantasy points to wide receiver, over 40 points per game per team, and the Saints lead the pack with 44.53. They traded Marshawn Lattimore. They lost their slot corner for the year with a broken arm. They're all these teams you're going to want to attack. Again, that's the Saints, the Bengals, the Falcons, the Chiefs, the Raiders, and the Chargers. I know a couple weeks ago, everybody was saying how good the Chargers were. They jinxed them. They've been pretty bad since. The Eagles, the 49ers, and Seahawks are the opposite. They've been really stingy against wide receivers, and those are teams that you're probably going to avoid if you have those flex players or those questionable players. Obviously, you're going to start your studs, but when you get a guy that you're thinking about sitting and thinking about starting, and he's playing against the Eagles, 49ers, and Seahawks, you probably want to sit him. Start of the week, DeAndre Hopkins. He was one one or two plays away from a monster week last week. Still had 4 catches, 90 yards. Hopefully that therapy session helps him out. He gets to go back against the Chargers, and I think you see a big game from D-Hop. Adam Thielen, Eagles are tough. Quinyon Mitchell is the real deal, and he's putting the clamps on some of the best receivers in the league. Adam Thielen's past his prime. I don't like it. Stream of the week, Wando Robinson. I got him, fringe wide receiver 3, but if you're in a pinch, this is a guy that you can play in a PPR formats. The Giants got to get the ball out quick, and they got a really nice matchup against the slot. I think this, the Giants pass protection is one of the toughest things right now with their left tackle situation. And so they're going to look for guys like Wandale Robinson and Theo Johnson to get that ball out quick. And Wandale's been getting 6-7 targets every week anyways. Tight ends, the Chargers and Detroit Lions have absolutely shut down the tight end position, less than 7 points per game over the last 4 weeks. But the Falcons, Giants, and 49ers are also tough opponents, less than 10 points. But when you look at teams that you want to target, you want to go against, play your tight ends against the Browns, the Bengals, and the Dolphins. They've each allowed over 20 points per game over the last 4 weeks. All right. Well, sit of the week is Kyle Pitts. Stream of the week is going to be Pat Freiermuth, and start of the week is going to be Jonnu Smith. So let's go to defenses before we get out of here. The Atlanta Falcons, Kirk Cousins, the wheels are falling off. They're calling for Michael Penix, and he gets his former team. Nobody's going to know Kirk Cousins better than Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores. I think you see Kirk Cousins throw another pick six. Jameis Winston, he's been throwing pick sixes. He's asking God to relieve him from them, but they're not going away. Jameis has been your whole career. Tennessee and Giants are also teams you want to attack. So my 5 streaming options in order this week. Vikings are my stream of the week. Then you have the Saints, the Bucks, the Cards, and the Dolphins. All right, this has been 5 Minute Fantasy Football. As always, good luck this season.